Henry Lee Lucas was born August 23, 1936, in Blacksburg, Virginia, to Viola and Anderson Lucas. Henry didn't get a great start in life, as his father was an alcoholic and his mother was a prostitute. He lost an eye at 10 years old to a fight with his brother. I guess he didn't see that coming. And his mother would force little Henry to watch her turn tricks, would make him cross-dress, and would pimp him out to men and women alike. His teachers complained about the cross-dressing to the point where they got a court order to put an end to it. If those teachers were still around, that would probably be a cancellation offense. In December of 1949, his father died of hypothermia after collapsing drunk outside during a blizzard. Soon after losing his father while in the 6th grade, Lucas ran away, drifting around Virginia. He claimed to have committed his first murder in 1951 at age 15, when he strangled Laura Burnsley, 17, after she refused his sexual advances. He later said he was just joking and he didn't really do it, something he would end up doing a lot. At 23, he would find himself moving to Michigan to live with his half-sister, Opal. He was engaged to a pen pal who wrote him while he was in jail. His mother came to visit Henry and Opal for Christmas in 1959. She didn't approve of Henry's engagement, wanted him to move back to Blacksburg to take care of her. They fought over this a lot in the coming weeks. On January 11, 1960, according to Henry, his mother hit him over the head with a broom, so he stabbed her in the neck. Henry fled the scene and later said, "All I remember was slapping her alongside the neck. But after I did that, I saw her fall and decided to grab her. But she just fell to the floor, and when I went back to pick her up, I realized she was dead. Then I noticed that I had a knife in my hand, and she had been cut." That's kind of like saying she tripped, and to break her fall, I jabbed a knife in her. Opal came home, found Viola alive in a pool of blood, but the paramedics didn't get there in time to save her. Henry was shortly arrested in Ohio. He then said that he killed his mother in self-defense, 20 to 40 years for second-degree murder, and to serve it at Jackson State Penitentiary. After 2 suicide attempts, he was admitted to Iona State Mental Hospital. Then he was released after 10 years in June of 1970. They stated it was due to overcrowding. Then he was a drifter. The next year, Henry was convicted of attempting to kidnap 3 schoolgirls at gunpoint, was sentenced to another 5 years. This is when, for the second time, he got engaged to a pen pal while serving his time. His penmanship must have been unreal. At this point, I'm thinking he is probably the best salesman ever. They married when he was released in 1975, but the marriage only lasted 2 years when Henry bolted. He left because his stepdaughter claimed that he was sexually abusing her. He moved back to Virginia, got another girlfriend, and split again when her family confronted him about another abuse allegation. He had teamed up with a petty thief named Otis Toole. They shared a weird interest in rape and death. In 1979, they traveled the country together with Otis's mentally handicapped niece, Becky Powell. They traveled to California when they were hired to help an infirm 82-year-old Kate Rich. Rich's family turned them out, claiming they didn't do their jobs and had written checks on Kate's account. While hitchhiking, they were picked up by the minister of a religious commune called the House of Prayer, located in Stoneburg, Texas. Later, Becky ended up missing, and Henry claimed she had picked up a ride at a local truck stop. In June of 1983, Henry was arrested for unlawful possession of a firearm by a felon. While he was in custody, he confessed to the murders of Becky Powell and Kate Rich. He led the police to what he said was their remains. The forensics were inconclusive, but his confession helped Henry appear more credible in later confessions. As we discussed earlier, he was a comedian, and later claimed he didn't kill Powell and Rich, but he did lead the cops to someone's remains. Then there were false confessions galore. In late 1983, Henry reported attempted suicide, rough treatment by inmates. He claimed the police stripped him, denied him smokes, denied him a bed, held him in a cold cell, tortured his genitalia, and denied him to contact an attorney. During police interviews, Henry stated to confess to numerous unsolved killings. They thought that he was definitely connected to 28 different killings, so James Adams, the director of the Texas Department of Public Safety, established the Lucas Task Force. The task force cleared 213 previously unsolved murders by Henry's confessions. Henry had started receiving preferential treatment, frequently treated to trips to restaurants and cafes, rarely handcuffed, allowed to wander the police stations and jails, and he even knew the codes for security doors. It seemed like he had the same effect on the task force as he had on his pen pals. Later, it was extremely difficult to determine his involvement to the crimes he had confessed to when it was discovered he was given access to the case files he was confessing to. When reviewing the tapes, it appeared Henry would see the reactions of the interviewers, then alter his stories to make them more consistent with the files. It's really unexplainable as to why the task force would allow him to study for tests. He eventually had confessed to around 600 murders. One hand was washing the others. He went from reporting abuse in prison to having the run of the place, taxpayer-funded trips for steaks and milkshakes, as payment for helping the police clear cases off the books that is pretty obvious he couldn't have committed, or else why would he need the frickin' case files before telling the details? Hugh Ainsworth had researched the cases being closed and had determined that Henry would have had to have taken his 13-year-old station wagon 11,000 miles in a month just to be at the location of the murders claimed for that particular month. Communication of death sentence. Lucas remained convicted of 11 homicides. The one he was sentenced to death for was an unidentified woman dubbed Orange Socks, later identified as Deborah Jackson, whose body was found in Williamson County, Texas on Halloween of 1979. And on that day, Henry had punched the time clock at work in Jacksonville, Florida. In 1998, George W. Bush commuted his death sentence to life imprisonment when it came to light that Henry was given access to the case files before he confessed to the crime. Henry Lee Lucas was found dead in prison from congestive heart failure at age 64 on March 12, 2001. Afterthoughts. Henry isn't credible. He initially claimed to have killed 60 people, then raised the number to 100, then to 600. Only then did they stop taking him seriously. He was interviewed by police for over 3,000 murder cases. At least 200 of them were attributed to him. Some continued to believe he murdered a massive number of people. One unnamed investigator claimed he probably killed about 40 people. Another unnamed Texas Ranger is quoted as saying, although it was obvious to him that Lucas often lied, instance where he demonstrated guilty knowledge. I remember him trying to cop to one he didn't do. But there was another murder case where I'll kiss your butt if he didn't lead us right to the deer stand where the murder took place. Ain't no way he could have guessed that, and I damn sure didn't tell him. I think he did that one. He was always seen as America's worst serial killer, even though he denied it, claiming in a letter to an author, Sheliday, saying, I am not a serial killer. Maybe he was joking then. Maybe the Texas Rangers were joking. Maybe the whole frickin' thing is a joke. We know Henry Lee Lucas had a troubled childhood, but we also know he lied. The Texas Rangers and the Lucas Task Force are good at lying too. Maybe. Or maybe they were just joking. Now you have to ask yourself, is this just a story? Or is it maybe something else entirely?